Okay, let's get started. So welcome everyone to the first Filecoin mining community call. Thank you so much for joining us. We had around 1,000 RSVPs for this call, and right now there are about 300 participants joining us. So we're super excited to share more about what we've been working on and hear from you. My name is Michelle, and I work on the Filecoin product and BD team. Some other members of the Filecoin team have also joined us on this call and are excited to meet you. We'll go around and start introducing ourselves, but in the meantime, if you're in the audience, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. Tell us about you and where you're from and how you heard about Filecoin. And from here, we'll start with the team introduction. So Juan, do you want to get the team started?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Juan Bennett. You might know me as Jay Bennett. I started the Filecoin project and I lead Protocol Labs as well. And yeah, excited to be here with everybody.
I'll go next. Hi, everyone. My name is Pooja. I have been at Protocol Labs for around the last year. I'm one of the Filecoin project leads and help out on product and BD as well, and really excited to be here with you and meet you all.
My name is Colin. Most people call me Proto Colin. I've been around for about 2 years at Protocol Labs and work on BD, product, and crypto economics on the Filecoin side.
Hey everyone, my name is Jesse. Been at Protocol Labs now for just about 3 years and working on a lot of Filecoin product business stuff and then also Protocol Labs things as well. So thank you all for joining. It's really exciting.
Hey, my name's Ian. I've been at PL for about a year and I do policy, strategy, and legal.
Hi, my name is Moi. I'm on the Filecoin team for Chinese translations and community.
Hello, my name is Enof. I lead the Go Filecoin implementation team building the reference node.
Great. Okay, so just to give you the rundown of how this call will work, we're going to start presenting very soon, but we'll also be answering questions in the Q&A box in this webinar. So please submit your questions there, and we'll do our best to answer them in real time. We'll also answer some questions live at the end of the call if there is enough time for that. Moi introduced herself, so we also have a English to Chinese translator in case you need that assistance. So, you know, we're happy to provide that. We'll also publish a full translation of this call and the presentation afterward. So you can look for that in the Filecoin community repo on GitHub. And we'll also share that with the attendees of this call. Okay, so let's get started. I think Juan is going to kick us off.
Yep, let me get set up. Can everyone see that? Great. Again, thank you very much for coming. We're really excited to see everybody here. Here's a rough agenda of the call. We're going to go through an overview. I'm going to talk about the mission and vision of the project, kind of the value proposition for miners and clients of the network. Then Browser is going to take over our early use cases ecosystem roadmap. We'll cover a research update, mining details, and then we'll go to Q&A. So Filecoin is a project with large-scale ambitions for the long term. It's going to take us quite a while to get to where we're headed. But the long-term mission is to create a decentralized, efficient, and robust foundation for humanity's information. There's a lot packed into that mission. It comes around with an understanding of how computation affects our society, making sure that power structures can prevent people from interacting with each other and transacting. We want to make sure that the computational storage medium is as efficient as it can be to create significant cost reductions and make it as accessible to people around the planet as we can make it. We wanted to make it be locally aware so that as communities of computer users form, they can retrieve the data that they want to access as closely as we can make it to them. And we want this whole computational medium to be extremely robust. We want it to be capable of withstanding all kinds of potential problems in the network and pain points that make it hard to maintain applications. So right now, a lot of the internet and web services are hosted on quite brittle platforms that can shut down at various moments. And we would like to have a much more strong foundation for this information. A critical component in Filecoin is creating, using market structures to drive significant efficiency gains in how we distribute storage, and to use elements of content addressing to achieve the decentralization goals. In the long term, we would like the kinds of applications and systems that are built on top of Filecoin to last for a long time, whether or not the original creators or the people that want to run the services are stick around or not. So just to set it in context, the internet was a process of kind of wiring everything together and forming a network. We then had Web 1.0, which was a read-only static medium that just allowed everybody to browse information, to broadcast and browse information. Web 2.0 created a read-write interactive medium where suddenly we now had programs interacting with each other and interacting with people. And so now people could form communities. And the big part of Web 2.0 was to make all of these sites suddenly be read-write. And we're now in a transition point where we're seeing the beginnings of Web 3.0, which brings trust into the equation. We're now having applications that make the interactions in the network verifiable. And it's that verifiability that gives us the ability to make certain claims about what's happening in these applications, make sure that we can trust them, and make sure that we can trust certain kinds of transactions and know that they're not going to revert on us or things like that. Web 3.0 is a huge movement with a lot of different groups. Of course, a big part of that is all of the blockchain communities and all the decentralized web communities, and to a significant extent, things like the linked data communities. This is a much larger movement with a lot of different applications and systems out there. We've been pretty excited to be part of it from kind of early days, and have a number of the projects that we're building be important building blocks for a number of the applications here. So you can think of things like lib2p as it's getting adopted into a bunch of other systems, or IPFS and so on, as being integral components of Filecoin, but also in helping enhance the benefits of Filecoin for those communities and users of those other systems. One important note about how we tend to build things and how we build our stack, that we tend to create modular and reusable components. So we want we break down larger scale projects into sub-pieces so we can make them as broadly usable as possible. But this means the stack that we've been building on for years is now culminating with Filecoin. So this is I'm very excited to be at a several years down this long-term plan and roadmap of having built out many of these projects over time to get to where we are. And so if people are coming to the Filecoin community from IPFS or things like that, this is kind of in a very important next stage in the long-term stack that we're building. We're not going to, of course, I think a lot of you are already familiar with a lot of this stuff. Just wanted to give a quick refresher. You can look into a lot more of this in a number of public talks that a number of us have given. There's a bunch of videos out there and some demos where you can see the Filecoin Go Filecoin in action. You can play around with it. I'll talk a bit about the value proposition of Filecoin for clients and miners, and get a bit into kind of why Filecoin makes sense as a as a business for both miners and for the network as a whole, as an entity in the coming decade. There's a number of different problems that Filecoin is addressing. As I talked earlier in the mission, there's all kinds of optimizations that need to happen. That right now there's significant moats around storage providers that a much freer market would enable any participant from offering better, cheaper, faster storage locally, and be able to kind of compete with other providers that might not be able to kind of go in and serve that niche. We think that a very important part of making cloud storage a commodity is to actually make it into a market. So this means creating kind of market dynamics around the actual storage itself. So you can think of hard drives as being commodities already, and they're kind of being a pretty efficient market around hard drives. But actually buying cloud storage is not quite as efficient of a market. All kinds of other problems around centralization and verifiability of storage, or being able to host your data and have it survive when certain applications are shut down are important. I'll focus on a few very important data points that are happening right now in the computational medium. So right now there's very significant unstoppable dynamics that drive the current data storage landscape. Here are some important tidbits, like on the order of around 20 to 30% of servers and data centers tend to be unused. And again, this figure kind of changes over time. It's kind of hard to measure, but there's a significant utilization problem, especially around hard drives. The data that we're creating is growing exponentially, and so that comes with a lot of a huge number of people that are joining the network, but also applications that require much larger and larger amounts of data. So it's estimated that roughly around 90% of the data that is being stored and distributed today was created in the past 2 years. So you can think of that continuing into the future. The vast amount of data that's coming in the future, the majority of the data that we'll be storing in 5 years is going to be created in the future. And we're now numbering on the 20 plus billion connected devices, and we're going to reach around 20 billion connected devices, and that's only going to increase as new forms of devices get connected into the internet. This is estimates like this are really hard to trust in long term, but it's an interesting indication of where the amount of storage might end up someday. This is a pretty important trend as a whole. This amount of growing storage is staggering. Really, it's right now being around the 2019 mark, and just kind of looking forward into what potentially might be in the hundreds of zettabytes and in effectively a short time span is really mind blowing. And of course, the shipments of storage media are also kind of growing. We're seeing new forms of storage media appear. Of course, the rise of SSDs over hard drives is a very important part. We'll see if these estimates actually turn out to be true. It may be the distributions look very different. It could be that RAM and other kinds of things become a bigger part of the distribution. But just as an important figure, just think of like the shipments of storage media that are going to happen in the future relative to kind of where we are today. So all of this is to say, humanity is creating an enormous amount of data over time, and we need to, as a species, need to meet that demand. And that also means that the storage facilities and storage systems of the world that are going to be storing the majority of the data in the future maybe they haven't been created yet, and they might be emerging. So it's kind of hard to say, but whether how much of data center growth we're going to see over time. But we think a very innovative component here is to rethink about how we're storing things, and to instead build platforms like Filecoin to address this very significant problem. And of course, the emerging platforms, things like AR and VR, which have huge assets, are going to increase the load of data. IoT is going to increase the number of devices drastically. We're going to see fleets of autonomous vehicles and so on. All these systems are going to start producing and consuming vast quantities of data. And so right now the web is running on a few centralized cloud providers. There's these top three, but there's a number of others as well. But in general, most participants' data in web services, of course, web services tend to be a small fraction of the total data on the planet. But when we think of cloud storage, when we think of buying and selling storage online for other parties, we tend to think of kind of cloud storage providers and tend to think of these three. These kinds of centralized components are introduce certain kinds of risk. They can lead to very significant misaligned incentives. They can lead to all kinds of bad situations and bad control dynamics. So one way that I like to think about this is to when you think about what you need to be a good storage provider, and so the slide is been using this slide for a while. What do you need to be a good storage provider? Right now is you need lots of disks and tape and storage media. You need to have good server administration. You need to have competitive pricing. You need to be able to have good connectivity. You need to be able to compete with players like Amazon and so on. So you need many regions and worldwide. You need near perfect uptimes. You need a huge facility to try and compete with a player like that. And then on top of that, you also need to build a business. You need to have good customer support. You need to have marketing, sales, usually a company, and all that kind of stuff. And so one of the important things to notice is that there's kind of a business backend and a business front end, where the backend is the hardware and the administration actually providing, delivering the service, and a lot of the other stuff is a kind of front end on top of the backend that achieves the things like scale and redundancy and locality, and then of course all of the marketing and distribution sides of the business. And so part of the point is the Filecoin network can create a market where the front end is served together as part of the network, and then the back end can be supplied by individual parties all coming together. So this is what enables individual small storage providers that couldn't necessarily compete with, say, a big player like Amazon to then suddenly form part of a network that together can compete. So you can think of this as a similar dynamic as what Airbnb or ride sharing, things like Uber and so on, have done, where you have a market of participants coming together to form a network and together provide a service that it can outcompete the centralized systems. And I think the thing that makes us so excited and confident that these kinds of systems can actually scale to using crypto economics is to just look at the inexorable growth of Bitcoin. So the Bitcoin hash rate is my favorite graph in the entire cryptocurrency ecosystem. It's just an amazing exponential that continues to grow. Every year that I look at it, it's just astounding how much energy is going into the Bitcoin mining systems. And that is the power of a very strong economic incentive. When you have a very strong economic incentive attached to a network like this, a lot of people will show up to be able to mine these systems. So we can't wait to ship the Filecoin network and create this kind of an incentive structure for providing storage. And we think that this is how we can meet that enormous storage demand in the future, is by creating this kind of incentive structure. You can think of Filecoin as a combination of a few different components. There's useful proof of work consensus. This is the very critical component that makes, when you think back to Bitcoin, all of this hash rate and hash power is kind of wasted in that it's adding security to the network, but it's otherwise not useful. And so what we'd like to do with Filecoin is to one of the key critical components is reuse that very important structure to then provide a useful service. And through that, we think we can get to building a pretty large scale market, that then can start having optimization dynamics that break the barriers between a lot of different parts of the system, where you no longer need kind of centrally planned storage systems that is one storage provider for everything, but rather a whole bunch of small storage providers can operate in the market to minimize things like bandwidth waste and so on. And so, we're really talking about a free market for storage. And of course, a very important component is all of this stuff is content at rest and decentralized. And so you can think of that as right away not having to rely on individual parties or individual companies to store your stuff, but really be able to rely on the network as a whole and be able to have like the storage providers be transient. All right, I think here I'll switch over to browser.
Thank you, Juan. Okay, let me get this screen shared. Great. Okay, can you guys see my screen? One second, sorry. Sorry about that. Okay, great. So let's get into some really exciting early use cases that we as a team are actively working on or anticipate seeing on the Filecoin network based on conversations with potential Filecoin clients. The first 3 use cases that we'll focus on this call are the DWeb blockchain developers, verified storage, and large data sets and archives. So Filecoin is the storage and hosting infrastructure backend for the DWeb. Sorry, I don't know why this is a little reactive. But today there are thousands of developers in the IPFS community that are building decentralized applications and tools. These developers are building products that are enhanced by distributed storage. A decentralized storage network like Filecoin will make their applications and businesses run better. These developers are already invested in our ecosystem and are really enthusiastic to begin testing and integrations with Filecoin. On the verified storage side, so there are many ways in which Filecoin is unlike any other cloud storage provider today, but one of the most significant differentiating features about Filecoin is the concept of verified storage. Clients using Filecoin can get a guarantee that the authentic data they're asking miners to store is being stored for how long they need. This is particularly powerful for parties that have data whose authenticity is often challenged, or data that is at risk of being destroyed at any moment by malicious parties. This could include climate data, genocide data, other scientific data, and more. We see Filecoin as a way to future-proof this data. It ensures that it's being stored in a secure way. And Filecoin also guarantees that this data is real and not has been tampered with. And this is largely because of the technologies that Filecoin employs, like proof of replication and proof of storage and content addressing. The next use case that we'll talk about is massive charismatic data sets. So we are seeing tremendous demand from archives that hold some of the world's most valuable and largest data sets. Filecoin will provide a much more secure and low-cost solution than what providers offer today for these parties. Certain features of Filecoin, like content addressing, works really well for these users because fingerprinting information makes it much easier to handle large volumes of data. Next, we'll get into the Filecoin ecosystem. So users are just one part of the broader ecosystem that surrounds Filecoin. And we also have other network participants that we want to highlight today, including miners, developers, clients, and token holders. Our product and biz dev teams are working hard to grow the Filecoin network and support the network. For all of our communities, we want to support extensive documentation and tooling, online community destinations such as forum and chat, and offline community events like meetups and so on. For miners, we'll support things like hardware specs, recommendations, calculators, guides, and tutorials, as well as profitability information. For developers, we'll support with tooling, libraries, APIs, SDKs, and for investors, we'll provide, work with exchanges and wallets to provide that infrastructure for investing and holding and trading Filecoin. Let's get into the roadmap and timeline. So this is a roadmap you've probably seen before. We've come a really long way since the initial research paper around Filecoin was published back in 2014. We spent a lot of time over the past year and a half refining the protocol design and working on the first ever practical implementation of the protocol from theoretical constructions. So right now we're in the Go Filecoin implementation phase and moving toward the testnet launch. This roadmap is a bit different in the sense that it's a high-level roadmap of what to expect from our team and what we're working on behind the scenes as we work toward the testnet and mainnet launch. We open sourced the code base earlier this year and launched the user DevNet, which was a very big milestone for our team. And then outside of the Go Filecoin team working in open source on the reference implementation, our business team is also, and like support teams and infrastructure and legal and everything, we're also working to cover a lot of different work streams to support launch success and the broader Filecoin ecosystem. So right now we're in the experimental DevNet phase, and we are working on these different streams that you'll see on this timeline as we get closer to testnet. We also, want to highlight that around the testnet launch is when we think it'll be, great for miner activity to ramp up. This is when we can start testing network scalability and testing how the Filecoin software stack scales with large-scale mining. So this we really imagine to happen around the testnet launch. But before then, we'll be working on a bunch of different work streams. If you want more information about the roadmap, please check out the public roadmap online. It's linked to on our website and in a blog post, and we update that periodically. I also want to take some time to set expectations around what you will see in the testnet. While we're working toward testnet launch, and it has not launched yet, we do want to describe what it will be like for you. And we really envision the testnet to be a long-lived network that miners, users, and developers can test on, even after the main network is launched. Everyone will be able to access the testnet when it is launched. The protocol implementation will be mostly feature complete at that time. We'll be providing vital mining guidance like hardware and profitability information. We'll be running security audits before, during, and ongoing after the testnet launch. We'll also be providing significant mining documentation and some demonstrated early user pilots. I also want to take some time to clarify what the testnet represents. So again, the testnet has not yet launched. All launches and partnerships will be announced on the Filecoin blog. You will not need any collateral to mine on the testnet when it launches, but we may start testing collateral in terms of test Filecoin down the road. Testnet Filecoin is not tradable and does not have any value. Real Filecoin tokens will be launched when the mainnet launches. And we currently have no external community partners, no mining partners or hardware partners. Okay, let's get into the research update. So the protocol architecture is set. Modular components of the protocol are still being refined, but the overall structure of the protocol is set. The protocol enables storage contracts enables storage contracts and for miners to provide proof of storage. These they're then flowing into the power table, which accounts for miner storage power. From there, the power table feeds into the consensus mechanism that extends the Filecoin chain. We've been implementing proofs from theoretical to practical constructions and have made significant improvements to proof of replication. The Filecoin research team has been refining the theoretical proofs constructions and bringing them to life. We made material improvements in generating proof of replication on a gigabyte of data over the past several months. And you can check out our research videos on the Protocol Labs YouTube channel for more info. Getting into proofs and mining and how are they related. So when you think about proofs, they represent two steps within the mining process. So proof of replication is an encoding algorithm that miners run once they have filled sectors and are ready to seal. This is the sealing process that you would use to then commit sectors to the Filecoin chain. And proof of replication does require CPU and compute power to encode large amounts of data. On the proof of spacetime side, miners will run proof of spacetime after committing certain amount of replicas from the pro-rep process to the chain. Miners are running proof of spacetime at different points throughout the Filecoin proving period to verify that they're still storing data that they agreed to store. And proof of spacetime requires some low RAM compute. Expected consensus is the, another part of the Filecoin protocol. And when it comes to like Filecoin's consensus mechanism, we use tickets on the blockchain to create randomness for the later election where miners can earn block rewards. On expectation, a single block will be mined per round, but if multiple miners win, all will get block rewards. And we're in the, right now, from like a research perspective, we're in the discovery, testing, and selection parameter selection phase that will really determine how the protocol will run. And we're conducting preliminary testing before testnet, but we'll continue to do that during testnet. Lastly, the research team has spent a lot of time preparing the replication game, which is a really great way to improve Filecoin security. We designed this as a way to get our community involved and help our team identify ways to improve Filecoin security. We highly encourage miners to play. Please, go to the related repo on Go Filecoin project on GitHub, and download the software, measure how fast your mining configuration is encoding megabytes of data, and submit your fastest POREP time to our server. It'll appear on our leaderboard, potentially. You can also try to outperform our replication game implementation by writing your own implementation using different types of algorithms or outcompeting based on hardware. Okay, let's get into the mining details while we're all here. So, we really envision Filecoin as a place for everyone to mine on the network. We expect the Filecoin mining community to be large and diverse. We expect to see storage and retrieval miners, large and small miners, new and existing crypto miners, miners with new hardware, with miners with underutilized hardware. And there are different niches that miners can serve while flourishing on the Filecoin network. The Filecoin network is by design aligned with miner incentives. 70% of the block reward that will be released over the lifetime of the network will go to miners, and the block reward release will be higher at the beginning of the network's launch. This is similar to how more tokens were released in the earlier periods of Bitcoin's existence. And half of the token supply in terms of like block rewards for miners will be released in the first 6 years of the network's activity. So getting into a quick review of mining, install, and setup. Here's a quick flow that walks you through getting started on mining Filecoin. So you download Go Filecoin and follow the install instructions on our GitHub project. The wiki is a great resource for that. You would then get test Filecoin from the Filecoin faucet. Again, test Filecoin has no real value at this time. You would then initialize the Go Filecoin daemon and sync with the devnet. Register your new miner actor on chain, and then run Go Filecoin mining start, and hooray, you're mining. In terms of getting deeper into the storage mining process, you'll then register after you register your new miner on the chain, you'll then provide a storage ask to the Filecoin chain where you'll sort of identify the certain parameters you'd like to specify and then submit that. When a miner makes a deal with a client, the client will send their raw data to the miner. The miner will fill that raw data into sectors. Once the sector is filled, the miner will encode the data using proof of replication with the seal process. Sealed sectors or replicas are then committed to the chain, and after those as those replicas are committed to the chain, the miner will begin, the proving period will begin, and the miner will start submitting proof of spacetime. While that is all happening, the client funds are locked when the deal was made and are released to the miner over time if it behaves appropriately. Okay, so I think we skipped a page. So to get started on mining Filecoin, there are some basic components that you'll need. So these are very high-level components. For the experimental DevNet only, the hardware specs might change over time, and we'll release the official hardware specs down the road. But generally, a lot of the configuration will be focused on the storage that you have. So you'll definitely need a lot of disks. From there, you will then need collateral, so you can currently get test collateral from the Filecoin DevNet faucet. You'll also need some CPUs and cores to run proof of replication and some RAM for proof of spacetime. So, you know, we really want to get as much information to you as we're ready and as we can. So the hardware specs are really contingent on some things that are happening in the background here. So we are finalizing proofs construction with our research and our research team and spec team. And there are some performance improvements and optimizations that are on the, could be on the horizon that could materially impact the hardware requirements. So we really do not recommend to buy any hardware at this time. We will provide specs in the future. And getting a little bit into how architecture might look as a miner. So it really depends on what your mining goals are. So if you're a casual miner, you know, you're likely running the Filecoin software as is. And you know, you're running a single threaded node using local storage. If you're a commercial miner, you're likely making some optimizations to realize some efficiencies. So perhaps you're using dedicated hardware to you know, separate out certain steps within the mining process, like sealing and unsealing. The storage location will really depend on the type of service you're trying to provide as a miner. Again, we'll provide more information about mining on the Filecoin network as we continue to build toward testnet. We'll definitely, you know, provide hardware specs as we get closer to the testnet. We'll provide more information about the collateral function. We'll provide more information about mining profitability on the Filecoin network. And you know, again, we do not recommend buying hardware until we release the hardware specs. In terms of community, so you know, thank you all again for joining here today. You guys are, you know, miners are very vital to the Filecoin network. I mean, we want to be here to help you get started. We'll be providing guides and tutorials for you. We'll be providing extensive documentation, a community chat and forums, as well as hardware profitability and specs information to come. How can you get involved and help our team? Well, you can start testing on the Filecoin user DevNet. Go check out the Filecoin wiki to get started. We welcome miner experimentation on the DevNet, and we recommend that you join the existing DevNet with your existing hardware setup. You can also contribute to open source miner tooling. We're actively looking for mining community contributions, and especially when it comes to mining system design and architecture suggestions, you know, we really appreciate any contributions. And you can check out the conversation on the Filecoin discussion forum if you have some ideas or want to share some learnings that you've you know, collected if you've been experimenting on the DevNet already. You can also play the replication game. So again, you know, this is a great way to help our research team improve Filecoin security and try to, you know, beat our team on the leaderboard. Here's you know, a way to get involved in our community channel. So you can visit the community repo on the Filecoin project on GitHub. The team is also in the Matrix and Slack channels for some real-time chat, and join the discussion forum as well for some more information and knowledge sharing, as well as Q&A. Okay, so that's it. Thank you so much for joining today. You know, we're super excited that you were able to make it and hear more about the project and what we've been working on. And now we'll get into a pre-answered Q&A. And this is largely sourced from the questions that you guys have graciously submitted as you RSVP'd for this call. So this represents some of the most popular questions that we received as a team over the past few weeks. So, you know, a big question is around launch timeline. When will the testnet launch? When will the mainnet launch? And, you know, we want to reiterate that, like, Filecoin's a deeply complex network. It brings together various components of technology, and our research, spec, and development teams are working really hard to take these theoretical constructions into practical constructions. We'll launch the testnet when we feel that the protocol is mostly feature complete and has been hardened with internal security tests. And we also want to complete extensive security audits, and that's likely when the mainnet would be released. We can't give exact dates right now, but we will, provide as much information and regular updates as possible on the Filecoin blog and in the Filecoin roadmap. So that's our general response on that. In terms of mining setup, like what standards do you need to mine Filecoin? Can you mine at home? And the answer is yes, you can mine at home. Storage clients will have different needs. We anticipate all sizes of miners will find a place on the Filecoin network. In terms of standards, we outlined the very generic components that you'll need, and we'll provide more specific hardware specs as we get closer to testnet. Collateral, what is collateral and how do I obtain it? We'll provide a lot more information about this as we get closer to testnet. Profitability, will be profitable to mine Filecoin. The Filecoin network will succeed if it's profitable for miners to provide storage and validate the network. And we want miners to thrive on the network, and we'll release more information and tooling for you to help determine whether it's profitable for you to mine on the Filecoin network. Mining pools. Mining pools. How will mining pools work on the Filecoin network? Our research team is exploring different constructions for mining pools. We're thinking through these constructions. We'll provide more information as we get closer to launch. Filecoin security. This is a top priority for our team. We are doing in-depth analysis of the protocol, security audits, formal verification of different parts of the protocol, understanding different primitives and implementations. And so this is something that we really are evaluating on all vectors, and you can go to the research repo on GitHub to get more information about our efforts around security. Legal. So how will Filecoin address legal issues such as illegal content or questionable regulatory environments? We're an open source protocol. We can't make judgments around content, but we do feel that individuals should be empowered to decide what content they would like to serve. So Filecoin will ship some tools that will help users and miners make those decisions. Community. So how big is the Filecoin community? We have around 100,000 followers across our different channels, and our social reach reaches over 1 billion users on different social media accounts. The representation of just miners alone is from over 165 countries around the world. Thousands of our community members are hosting meetups, are participating in summits, testing on our devnets, in our community channels and more. And we highly encourage you to engage with each other, engage with our team, and get involved. Okay, so that concludes the presentation content. I will stop sharing. And we have a bit of time for some additional Q&A. And so why don't we get started? If Pooja, you can help surface some of the questions that we saw in the Q&A section.
Yes, totally. So I think one of the questions that we saw a lot of people ask was about the early miner program. So, we had a forum on the filecoin.io website I think it was probably more than a year ago at this point. And I think many people had the experience that they haven't received a reply yet. And so the question is, is it possible to apply again? So many of you are actually, maybe are on this call because you did get an email about this call, and that's what, so far, we've been using the mining, early miner program signups in order to communicate with miners. And so if you're on that list, don't worry, we still have you in mind, and we will be communicating with everyone who's on that list more over the next few months as we get closer to our testnet launch and have more things that the mining community can get involved in and test. So don't worry, you don't need to apply again. We still do have those signups.
Let me add to that, it's going to be really important once the testnet begins. We want to be able to test with both distributions of large-scale miners that can test and make sure that the tooling kind of works for them, distributions of smaller miners that can also make sure that the things are within parameters for them. And especially we're going to be conducting, once we enter testnet, we will need to conduct some large-scale network test cases where we'd like to spin up as many Filecoin nodes as we can as quickly as possible to test, how the system will kind of handle those kinds of situations. So stay tuned for that. That's going to come, once the testnet arrives. We're going to be using the miner program for that. So stay tuned there.
Great. And then another question that we saw on the chat and also have been asked in other forums as well is how easy, I believe Dan Shields asked this one on our current Q&A, but the question was how easy plug and play will an application using IPFS be able to migrate to Filecoin regarding moving from a system to pin user data to outsourcing this to the Filecoin network. So this was, this is something that's extremely important to us, and we are actively working on making this interface as seamless as possible. You can follow the integration work on our GitHub repo that contains the Filecoin protocol specification. So it's just our specs repo. That's where we're working on that if you're interested.
For people who haven't discovered it yet, you can ask questions in the Q&A thing. Zoom has a Q&A component, so we're using the list of questions to kind of sort through, and you can upvote there. There's a number of questions that are already answered there. It's about 79 answered questions that have been answered through this call. So if you have a question, just make sure and go check that out.
Yep. So one other question that we've gotten a lot is about availability and guarantees of storage availability and mining node availability on the network. This is one of the questions that we get a lot, but the answer to this is, there are no guarantees that we can make around availability at this time. We're still building a lot of core pieces of the protocol, and furthermore, network characteristics such as availability are going to be dependent on just the landscape of miners that are mining on the network. So, this is a great community to, if you're interested in this problem, the best way to try to solve it is to mine on the Filecoin network, and that makes the network just generally more available. But unfortunately, there are no guarantees that we will probably ever be able to give about that because it's just a result of how the network.
And we'll be able to have a certain kind of picture around, certain knobs and dials that clients will be able to tune to kind of increase replication factors, and then experimentally we can then derive some kind of statistical claims around, what the availability of certain pieces of data with certain parameter choices and so on. And so we'll try to aim for those kinds of results, and then from that, after all, this is kind of how most cloud storage systems actually form their guarantees. They're based on actual empirical measurements of their systems, and so we want to get to be able to do this kinds of assessment.
Yep. Okay, one other question that we are seeing a lot is about the Filecoin API, where it is documented and how developers can start building applications on the Filecoin network. So this is a great question. Currently, the Filecoin API is not documented, but this is something that we're actively working on, and early in Q3, we're going to be shipping this documentation, and we'll have more guidance for developers on how you can start building applications on the Filecoin network. So just stay tuned. We'll be announcing this on our blog. Okay, I'll keep going through a couple of these. So there's also a question, many questions about the relationship between testnet and mainnet, and whether storage power, any of the storage contracts that have been made on the testnet, and any of the tokens earned or so on during the testnet phase will transfer to the mainnet. And the answer to that question is no. When we start the mainnet, that will essentially be from scratch. The testnet is a completely separate network that we will be using to test how Filecoin network dynamics and new features in our reference implementation. So there will not be, at the moment that the mainnet launches, there will not be a transfer of those resources from testnet to mainnet. They will be separate networks.
Hey, Pooja, I can jump in with a question that
Great, yeah.
I scrolled over in my presentation. So the question is around, do I need a public IP address to mine Filecoin? And the answer is yes. Miners should ensure that they are externally dialable, whether that's through NAT configuration or getting a public IP address from your ISP. It is currently a requirement for being a storage miner, because if you aren't dialable, then clients will not be able to propose deals to you. I also see some questions about whether we will share the deck, and that answer is yes. We will post the deck in the community repo with some more information about this call, including the recording, and we'll also be working to get a translation of the deck to you, at least in a Chinese translation, over the next week or so. So you can look out for that, and yeah. We're excited to share this material with you.
And I will also just jump in to say I can still see many questions about testnet and mainnet launch timing, and also when we will be releasing hardware requirements. So Browser mentioned this during the presentation, but I'll just reiterate, we don't have those dates, those definite dates yet, but we will be announcing them on our blog. And the same goes with our hardware requirements. So if you're interested in that information, please follow our blog. That's the best way to make sure you get that information in the future. And then the other thing I will also mention is that many of these questions, there are a lot of questions coming in now. I'm not sure we're going to be able to get to all of them. So if you haven't, the community channels that Browser mentioned during the presentation are the best way to make sure that you get your questions answered beyond just this 1 hour slot. So if you go to our discussion forums at discuss.filecoin.io or our community chat channels, you can mention these questions there, and we will get to them soon for the ones that we don't get to today.
Okay, well, I think it's great that we're ending 5 minutes early. This is not something that I expected, so I'm proud of us for being on time. Thank you all again so much for joining us. We were really excited to connect with you and hear more about you and share more about what we've been doing with you. We definitely hear your questions, and we'll do our best we can to answer them in future communications and whatnot. And so, stay tuned for more information about upcoming community calls. And, there will be more content around mining. Again, we'll release more information as we get closer to testnet. And thank you again. Look out for the reporting and the presentation. All right. Bye, everyone.